Is there something you want?
Silence.
The shadowy figure remained utterly still, and the stillness was wrong. No way, Yana Murong's eyes went wide. You don't want all of them, do you? At least leave us a couple bottles. My brothers worked pretty hard for these.
Still nothing.
How strange. Kael's brow furrowed. Could it be that his wish isn't these pills after all? Perhaps, Ivan hesitated. It's doing this just to help you break the seals. Help me, Kael was taken aback. That's impossible. It can't still have consciousness.
He stopped mid-sentence.
Asterisk obsession, asterisk. Even Shade, who had once been Mordain, knew little of such things, let alone him. Besides, this figure had been following him since the very beginning. There was surely some hidden secret behind it that he didn't understand. Perhaps it was simply helping him out of instinct. That was entirely possible. Forget it. He shook his head, no longer dwelling on it, and set about collecting the pills that still retained most of their potency. Just as he'd suspected. A full half of the pills were still usable. Let me test one. After thinking it over, he took out a soul-nourishing pill with somewhat diminished potency and slipped it into his mouth. He regretted it immediately. Not only did the soul-nourishing pill completely heal the injuries within his soul, it even increased his soul power by a measure. If he hadn't strained with every ounce of his strength to suppress it, he would have broken through into the next realm on the spot. So close, he was still shaken and dared not take another. At this moment, all of them felt as though they'd struck a massive fortune. A pill capable of replenishing soul power was naturally far more precious than ordinary ones. Take one bottle out, and it would absolutely spark a frenzy. And here, they had plenty. Let's go, Kael was bursting with energy. This is only the second great haul. The treasures deeper in are bound to be even better. We have to get to those pills before they do. Almost subconsciously, he glanced at the figure. He, too, wanted to know whether it was truly helping him. It wasn't long before they found another great haul. Body tempering pill, blood nourishing pill, physique enhancing pill. The pills here all seemed geared toward body tempering. Apart from cultivators about to face the heavenly tribulation, they seemed tailor-made for the rare breed of body cultivators who devoted themselves entirely to refining their Phi's ical form. Yana Murong was grinning from ear to ear. She had always walked the path of a body cultivator, so these pills held extraordinary significance for her. This time, Kael ran a deliberate experiment. He had Yana Murong and the other two take turns attempting to break the restrictions, yet none of them could provoke any reaction from the figure. But the moment the one breaking the seal was him, the figure would instantly demonstrate the correct method. Kael was finally convinced. The figure really was helping him. It seems, Ivan said, somewhat moved, its connection to you is far from simple. You're helping me? Kael stared at the figure. So what is it you want? You've waited all these years, even the power of time itself couldn't erase you. What exactly are you waiting for? Needless to say, the figure couldn't answer. Forget it. Kael sighed softly, silently resolving that if he ever had the chance, he would help this figure fulfill its wish. With the correct seal-breaking method in hand, the group's efficiency at collecting pills naturally soared. Before long, the third haul, the fourth. They swept through like a whirlwind, clearing everything in their path. Asterisk boom asterisk. Inside another great hall, Choo Kwahng and his two companions went all out. Relying on the seal, breaking treasures and techniques they'd brought, it took them a full half hour to barely shatter the lingering restriction and retrieve the pills within. Having been hunted down by Kael, they were naturally simmering with resentment, but they hadn't forgotten their purpose here. Pills? That was what they truly wanted. These are for body tempering. Kai Jun frowned slightly, not all that useful for us, honestly. As a holy son, the Holy Land naturally had no shortage of spiritual medicines for refining the body. These pills might be exceedingly rare in the outside world, but to him, their value was somewhat marginal. No matter, Choo Kwahng waved a hand. You must have noticed. The intact Mystic Elixir Pavilion holds an enormous variety of pills. Be patient. As long as we keep searching, the harvest will be considerable. Exactly, Wuhan nodded. With the three of us working together, our seal, breaking speed far outstrips theirs. That's our greatest advantage. Most of the fortunes in this Mystic Elixir Pavilion will be ours. After all, Choo Kwahng narrowed his eyes. He's just one man. Heh, Kai Jun naturally knew who he was talking about and let out a cold laugh. For all we know, he didn't even bring any seal, breaking artifacts, and is still racking his brains over some restriction right about now. Sure, we suffered a small loss at his hands, but when it comes to the spoils of this Mystic Elixir Pavilion, he can't even hope to catch up. Then let's not waste time. Choo Kwahng didn't linger. Our real opponents aren't him, they're the other two factions. HMPH, picturing Kael's crestfallen expression, Wuhan's face was full of vindictive glee. Those two factions are nothing to fear either. In this expedition to the Mystic Elixir Pavilion, we're the ones who will come out on top. A short while later, they found another remarkably well-preserved great hall. HM, the moment they stepped inside, all of them froze. Where are the pills? Where are the restrictions? How fortunate! Choo Kwahng remained perfectly composed. This hole must have already been explored. Let's find another one. The others felt a dawning realization. The Mystic Elixir Pavilion was only so large, after all, that possibility wasn't out of the question. A short while later. Empty again. Keep searching. After another moment. Still empty. Gradually, they began to sense that something was off. Elsewhere. Holy Maiden, beside Zhao Menjiu, one of her followers was utterly baffled. This is the second hole in a row now. How are they all empty? By all rights, a place this well-preserved should have been full of pills and restrictions. Could it be, another said, growing anxious, that everything in here is already gone? Impossible, the first retorted. We've only been inside for less than half a day. And you saw those restrictions yourself, even with our seal. Breaking artifacts, they'd take a good long while to crack. No matter how fast others are, how fast can they possibly be? Enough. Zhao Menjiu spoke suddenly. Let's keep looking. Though her face was calm, a faint unease was beginning to take root in her heart. Could it really all be gone? Meanwhile, in another great hole, not far from Zhao Menjiu, Daihan stared blankly at the wooden racks covered in spent, useless pills, asking instinctively, which hall is this now? Young Valley Master. Behind him, a follower stammered, the sixth. Where are the pills? The follower nearly burst into tears. You're asking me. Who am I supposed to ask? Where are my pills? Daihan's golden fur trembled with fury as he couldn't hold back a roar. Where the hell did all my pills go? Hearing the faint roar that drifted over from the distance, Kael heaved a rueful sigh. How many have we done? 25, even answered without a second thought. In just a few short hours, they had nearly swept every hall in the outer perimeter clean. As for the harvest, even with his fearsome calculation ability, he was starting to lose count. There was simply too much. By comparison, the secret realm they had ransacked from the Yang and Meng families earlier was less than a mosquito's leg next to this hall. Only 25. Kael frowned deeply. That won't do. If we're the ones eating meat, how can we let them have the broth? Nero's Shanks's mouth twitched. Fair enough, Yana Murong said, nodding in wholehearted agreement. How about we take the whole pot? We absolutely must take the pot. Kael nodded firmly and strode straight into the hall. As for the figure behind him, from terror to acclimation to this easy familiarity, the entire journey had taken only a few hours. Friend, he called out, I'm counting on you again this time. The figure did not move. Whether it had understood was anyone's guess. No idea. Kael didn't care. He turned his gaze to the wooden shelf. Let's see what pills we've got here this time. He stopped mid-sentence, his expression turning grave. The text on the jade vial was unmistakable. Draws marrow from bone, elevating the very foundation of one's potential. An ordinary body that takes it will advance at the pace of a genius for 10 years. A genius that takes it will advance at the pace of a prodigy for 10 years. A prodigy that takes it will advance at the pace of a monster for 10 years. After 10 years, the foundation of one's potential will be spent, and one shall never advance another step for life. On the side of the jade vial, 3 small characters stood out with perfect clarity. Marrow Extraction Pill. What's wrong? Sensing Kael's change, Yana Murong and Nero's Shanks crowded over. One glance was all it took. They sucked in a sharp breath. These pills, what in the world are they? The shelf naturally held far more than just Marrow Extraction Pills, and each one was more defying than the last, their side effects more horrifying still. Bloodburst Pill. When taken by anyone below the Transcendence Realm, defense is increased tenfold for a quarter hour, after which one's blood and Kai wither to dust. Soul-Scorch Pill. Anyone below the Transcendence Realm who takes it will have their soul power multiplied tenfold for a quarter hour. After that, their soul decays to nothing. Spirit Devouring Pill. Anyone below the Transcendence Realm who takes it will have their combat power multiplied tenfold for a quarter hour. After that, their meridians burn to cinders. The longer the two of them read, the deeper the horror sank into their bones. Here, Yana Murong's face had gone pale. How can pills like these even exist? These pills, Nero's Shanks let out a slow breath. If someone actually swallowed one, would they even survive? Earlier, in just a few short hours, they had swept through nearly every pill in the outer halls of the Mystic Elixir Pavilion, and in doing so, had laid eyes on an immense variety. Healing, cultivation, soul, body, tempering. Some they had heard of, some they had not. The collection had encompassed almost every pill they could conceive of. But these, they couldn't have dreamed them up if they'd tried. Would anyone really take these? Yana Murong swallowed hard. Some would, even stayed quiet for a moment. When a person is trapped in a hopeless situation, with no way forward, there will always be those willing to try. But Yana Murong was thoroughly baffled. Taking one of these is certain death. There's no chance for a second dose, so how are there so many of them? Did a whole army charge into a suicide battle who would ever need to go that far? They had searched so many places by now that they'd long noticed the pattern behind these pills. They weren't made carelessly. They had been uniformly refined to a strict standard, their functions and classifications labeled with terrifying precision. Clearly, pills like the Bloodburst Pill, though fewer in number than the rest, were absolutely mass-produced. At that thought, silence fell over them. One or two of these death-dealing pills could be written off, but this many, who in the world were they meant for? This could no longer be explained away by a simple fight for your life. Throughout it all, Kael had not spoken a single word. Instead, working in tandem with the figure, he opened the seal on the wooden shelf. Ignoring everything else, he simply took the vial of Marrow Extraction Pills into his hand. In truth, compared to the other domineering pills, the Marrow Extraction Pill was already extremely gentle in nature. Brother Yong, he sighed, tipping the pill out. This is the one, isn't it? The pill was only the size of a thumb, its surface lumpy and pitch black, refined from heavens knew what materials. A fishy, foul stench hit the nose, vicious and unbearable, yet strangely within 2 breaths, that reek abruptly shifted into an exotic fragrance. A single whiff was enough to lift one's spirits, and even one's cultivation seemed to climb along with it. Yes, seeing the pill, Ivan's gaze dimmed, his expression turning complicated. It's just that the one I had that day was nowhere near as potent as this, if it had been this one. Back then, when he had first stumbled into this place, he was only at the Kai Convergence realm. Naturally, he couldn't break the seal. The Marrow Extraction Pill he had obtained carried only a fraction of the medicine's remaining power. It could hardly compare to this one at all. Kael understood what he meant. That earlier pill, with its potency insufficient, would at most give even 10 years' worth of cultivation to reach the peak of the Divine Connection realm. That was exactly why Ivan had always said he would never make it to the air-stepping realm. But if he had gotten this pill instead, with 10 years, he would likely have reached at least the heavenly tribulation realm. Marrow Extraction Pill, Yana Murong's attention snagged. Does that mean she had pieced together their exchange? Yang, you've taken this pill before. Ivan didn't speak, but he didn't deny it either. Are you insane? Yana Murong cried out in shock. She suddenly understood that the irregularities Ivan had shown earlier were most likely the side effects of the Marrow Extraction Pill. The excruciating pain of bone, scraping marrow, sucking torment, how could any ordinary person endure it? Junior brother Yong, Nero's Shank sighed. Why did you have to? He couldn't finish the sentence. If not for the support of this pill, how could even an ordinary mortal body ever have entered the Azure Cloud Pavilion? How could he have kept pace with the geniuses of the Jade Pinnacle sect? How could he have shielded Yonglan and her child through all those years? It all came down to this. He had had no choice. Yong, after a moment's hesitation, Yana Murong offered words of comfort. A first for her. Don't worry, maybe. There's still a way. That's right. Nero's Shanks nodded. There must be a way. Over the past few months, the group had forged a bond of no small depth, and they could hardly bear to watch Ivan fall into the miserable fate of never advancing another inch in cultivation. It's fine. Ivan had already made his peace with it. It was my own choice, and I don't regret it. Besides, for someone like me, this outcome is already more than good enough. No, Kael shook his head. I think this is bad, really bad. But that doesn't mean there's no way out. No need to comfort me. I'm not comforting you. With shade around, Kael naturally understood the Marrow Extraction Pill far better than anyone else present. That Marrow Extraction Pill draws on a person's very foundation and potential. The one you took carried only a fraction of the medicine's true power, nowhere near the genuine article. That's also why your cultivation progress has fallen so far short of what the pill bottle promised, solving your problem. It's not hard. Brother, Yana Murong's heart leaped. You mean? Exactly, Kael nodded. Pills, spirit herbs, whatever it takes. As long as we replenish the foundation and potential you've burned through, your problem disappears. The others fell silent. Spirit herbs that boosted soul power were rare, yes, but they'd seen such things before. Foundation and potential, though, that was talent, pure and simple. To replenish, it was no different from raising a person's innate aptitude, turning a mediocrity into a genius. Medicine with that kind of effect was practically heaven-defying. For people like them, such a thing wasn't merely unseen, it belonged to the realm of legend. After all, talent was something you were born with. If such medicine were readily available, only one outcome would follow. Geniuses would crowd every street, and prodigies would be as common as stray dogs. And in such a world, the Marrow Extraction Pill would lose its entire reason for existing. Forgotten already, Kael, however, was brimming with confidence. Where are we right now?
And that soul-nourishing lotus.
Right, Nero's Shanks's eyes lit up. Choo Kwahng said that soul-nourishing lotus was once counted among the sacred medicines. And the Mystic Elixir Pavilion is nothing if not mysterious. If it has a lotus like that, there must be other sacred medicines too.
Who knows?
Maybe there's even a great medicine that can restore one's foundation and potential. But Yana Murong frowned. Everything we've passed on our way here. Apart from that lotus, there wasn't even a pill fit for the Transcendence realm. Not that there aren't any. Kael shook his head. More likely, they're just not here. The places they'd explored so far were only the outer palaces of the Mystic Elixir Pavilion. The palace at the very center and that mysterious giant tower, they hadn't set foot in those yet. That was where the true heart of the Mystic Elixir Pavilion lay. Exactly. Yana Murong slapped her forehead. Why the hell didn't I think of that? Nero's Shanks very much wanted to point out that her thinking of it would have taken a miracle. He didn't dare, though. He valued his life. Truth is, Ivan understood his companion's intentions well enough. It would be a lie to say he wasn't moved. Even if such a medicine really exists, using it on me would be a waste. A great medicine that could elevate one's foundation and potential. If Yana Murong and Nero's Shanks took it, the results would be tremendous. On him, calling it waste would be generous. Ivan, Kael looked genuinely disappointed. You keep bringing that up. It's getting old, man. Exactly. Yana Murong shot him a glare. All this time, and this self-pitying streak of yours hasn't changed one bit. Besides, Nero's Shanks chimed in with a chuckle. I made the Dow bell ring 5 times. By any measure, that makes me a genius. That kind of medicine. I can take it or leave it. Ivan said nothing. Maybe he really was being too self-pitying. Oh, right. Nero's Shanks seemed to think of something. That place is the core of the Mystic Elixir Pavilion. The restrictions there must be no laughing matter. He stopped halfway. It felt like he'd forgotten something. Heh, Kael pointed at the figure behind him. With my friend here, what restriction could possibly stump him? Inside this Mystic Elixir Pavilion, is there anywhere we can't go? 2 words. Smooth sailing. In that case, Yana Murong blinked. Brother, didn't we say we were going to take the whole pot? Forget the whole pot. Kael waved a hand, grand and magnanimous. There's only a little soup base left. Let them have a taste. Right. Yana Murong was in excellent spirits. The more they taste, the more they crave. They'll crave themselves to death. Come on, let's go eat the meat. Before they set out, Kael and Ivan, as if sharing one mind, swept every pill from the wooden racks into their storage rings. Ha, Nero's Shanks blinked. What are you taking those for? To make money. Kael said it as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Someone's bound to need these. We'll sell them. Right? Ivan nodded in firm agreement. They're definitely worth a fortune. Nero's Shanks and Yana Murong were utterly speechless. Sure enough, there was a reason those two were friends. Just as Kael and his crew were busy raking in their windfall at the entrance of a palace, the forces of Choo Kwahng, Zhao Menjiu, and Dai Han had converged by coincidence, read I.D., and locked in a blazing argument. Coincidence? Not exactly. After a thorough sweep, they'd made a startling discovery. Every palace that remained in good condition had been stripped of any pill with even the slightest medicinal value. Not a single one left. Cleaner than a dog's lick. After scouring the place in desperation, they'd all come upon the palace before them at nearly the same moment. And this place, maybe, probably, perhaps, was the last spot in the entire pavilion that still held any pills. Naturally, no one was willing to yield an inch. True, Choo Kwahng's side had the advantage in numbers, but after Kael had cut them to ribbons earlier, the 3 strongest among them were still nursing serious injuries. Charging headlong into a clash with the other 2 factions would give them no real edge beyond sheer manpower, which was exactly why they'd remained frozen in this standoff. None ring to make the first move. Then again, leaving was also out of the question. You two factions. Seeing the other side refuse to budge, Daihan's temper ignited. Don't be too greedy. With all those palaces here, your people have taken every bit of benefit. Now there's just this little left, and you still won't back off. A man shouldn't be so greedy. You've eaten your fill of meat. Are you really going to deny me even a sip of soup? His tone was fierce. But if you listened closely, there was a note of grievance beneath it. Zhao Menju's face was cold, the lofty bearing of the divine maiden of the heavenly radiance haul back in full force. It's true that fortune belongs to whoever seizes it, but a person should still leave some room for others. Hogging everything for yourself isn't a pleasant habit. You too. Choo Kwahng said coolly, we're all clever people. Stop putting on a show. Everything worth taking in this place has likely been pocketed by your two factions already. I'm showing you plenty of face by not demanding you turn it over. If you won't leave even these last scraps for us, don't blame me for being impolite.
Bullshit.
Struck where it hurt, Daihan erupted. I've only found a single palace since I walked in here.
One?
Everyone froze, suddenly sensing something amiss. Menjiu? Wu Han turned to Zhao Menjiu.
How many did you all find?
2. Wu Han fell silent. Kai Jun believed Zhao Menjiu's words. This kind of thing truly had no need to be concealed. Then I won't hide it from you either. His brow furrowed deeply. Even with the 3 of us joining forces, we only managed to find 3 sites. Daihan was so disheartened he nearly spat blood. Sure enough, he really was the most unlucky one of all. The 3 clans, 6 sites in total. Zhao Menjiu said coolly, that's not even a fifth of the opportunities remaining here. Who took the rest? Did they sprout wings and fly away? She stopped mid-sentence as a silhouette flashed through her mind. Could it be him? Obviously, if she could think of it, so could the others. No mistake, Choo Kwahng narrowed his eyes. It's definitely him. Him, Daihan's fury blazed. Al. He stammered for a while, but in the end, he simply couldn't summon the courage to voice any thought of revenge. At this very moment, the culprit they had been talking about, the one who ate the meat, refused others even the broth, and carried off the pot as well, had already arrived before the great hall at the very center. What a grand sight! Seeing the palace, Kael and the others let out heartfelt exclamations. The whole was more than 10 times the size of the outer palaces. Though it lay in ruins, it still radiated a vast, imposing grandeur that made one involuntarily imagine how towering and majestic it must have been in its prime. A massive plaque hung high above the entrance. Ravaged by the years, it was heavily modeled, yet 2 characters could still be faintly discerned. Mystic Elixir. Let's go in. Kael took a deep breath. There's bound to be plenty of good stuff in here. Just by the scale of the hall, he was certain, this place had to hold pills suitable for those above the Transcendence realm, and even Saint Realm pills were entirely possible. With that thought, he put aside his awe and stepped into the hall.
Then
he was utterly dumbfounded. Where are the pills? His gaze turned vacant, his expression rather like Daihan's from moments ago. Even the words were exactly the same. Where are my pills? He wasn't the only one. Yana Murong and the other 2 were equally stunned. The hall's interior, however, was not exactly bare. At the very center stood a colossal pitch-black pill furnace, fully 30 feet tall, with nearly a third of its body missing. Its surface was engraved with countless depictions of spirit herbs and exotic fruits, none of which the group could name, but the erosion of time had blurred most of them beyond recognition. Unless one looked closely, they were nearly impossible to identify. Behind the furnace, the space was divided into individual pill chambers, each roughly 10 feet square. More than 100 in all. Perhaps due to the long passage of time, the wards on the chambers had long since vanished, and the interiors were visible at a single glance. 2 rows of rotted jade shelves. A single broken pill furnace. The furnishings were not only extremely simple, but also astonishingly uniform. Nothing else. There might have been more once. Now there was nothing. Unlike the hall outside, these jade shelves bore no wards and held no pill bottles, completely empty, even cleaner than the wooden racks Kael and the others had swept through early. At least those wooden racks still had plenty of spoiled pills left behind. Nothing. Kael was utterly baffled. He glanced back at the figure behind him. How can there be nothing? Naturally, the figure did not answer. By all logic, Nero's Shanks said with a frown, this hall was surely a place of the utmost importance. If that many pills survived outside, the ones stored here should have been more numerous, more precious, and better preserved. But now, There's one possibility. If inside, there were never any pills here to begin with, and thus nothing to protect.
That doesn't add up. Nero's Shanks's frown deepened. Where there are pill chambers like these, pill masters must have been present.
And a pill master, even one who doesn't refine often, can never be short of pills on hand. The Jade Pinnacle sect also had its Don Ewan. The pill masters within were each enormously wealthy, like walking treasure vaults. How could this place be like this, empty of everything?
Ivan said nothing. Clearly, he too was at a loss.
Here, Yana Murong suddenly pointed at one of the chambers. It looks like there are still a few bottles of pills in there. Inside that chamber, the jade shelves were equally rotten, as if the slightest touch would reduce them to powder. Yet several pill bottles sat atop them, buried beneath a thick layer of dust. Let's go. Kael's spirits lifted. Take a look. But upon entering the chamber, he was disappointed all over again. Those pill bottles were protected by no wards, and had long since lost their original color. As for the pills within, there was no need to guess. Either they had turned to dust, or their potency had completely faded, leaving only spoiled pills.
Forget it. Nero's Shanks side. Let's head back. It seems there's really nothing here.
No way. Kael shook his head. We've already come this far. At the very least, we should find out what kind of pills these bottles once held.
As he said this, he swept his hand through the air. The thick layer of dust on the shelves and bottles was instantly cleared away. What kind of pills are these?
Seeing the blurry inscriptions on the bottles, the group frowned once more. Azurewood Profound Spirit Pill. Those below who take it will be immune to the erosion of divine power for 1 hour. Mystic Armor Pill. Those below the Saint Realm who take it within half a divine might suppression. Woo Fire Mystic God Pill. Those of the Saint Realm who take it within hours, immune to divine authority. Divine might, divine power, divine authority. What in the world were these? It sounds, Yana Murong scratched her head, somehow familiar. Could it be? A thought stirred in Nero Shanks's heart. Is this connected to that thing in the god, slaying formation? The Supreme Elder also said, a divine corpse is sealed there. Back then, after the incident at the Secret Realm, the two of them had made a point of seeking out Murong Yuan to ask about the god, slaying formation, and had learned part of its in truth, however, Murong Yuan's knowledge had been limited. Their understanding of the divine corpse was far inferior to Kael's. Absolutely, Kael was certain. The divine power, divine might, and such mentioned here were indisputably tied to that three-eyed, sick, sarmed giant. After all, according to Shade, among all the races across the myriad heavens, only that one race dared to call themselves gods. Could it be? A thought flashed through him. Was this Mystic Elixir Pavilion connected to that cataclysmic war of the primeval era that Shade had spoken of? Brother, Goo? Just as he was lost in thought, Nero Shanks's voice came over. Since there are no pills here, let's go look somewhere else. Hold on. Kael shook his head. I keep feeling there's something very strange about this place. Saying this, he ignored the other's astonishment and flicked his sleeve wide. Spiritual power rolled through, sweeping the dust from the entire chamber in an instant. HM. The dust settled, revealing a faint, blurry number on the dark, mottled stone wall. The group froze once more. 97. What did that mean? Outside the Mystic Elixir Pavilion, before the main palace, the crowd had pieced together the truth of the matter, and their faces only darkened further. This is pure greed. Exactly. 80% of the fortune is already in his hands. That man dares to hog it all for himself. He gorges himself on the meat and leaves us nothing but the scraps. Unacceptable. One after another, the assembled cultivators hurled curses at Kael, their faces twisted with indignation. What they couldn't know, of course, was that if not for a spur of the moment whim, Kael wouldn't have left them even those scraps. No, Wuhan's face was grim. We can't let him take everything. Exactly. Kaijun nodded. We need to make him cough up half. No, 70%. Split it among us. Then go on. Why don't you? Daihan sneered. After he sent you packing with your tail between your legs, you still have the nerve to talk. You. Enough. Choo Kwahng cut them off with a sharp bark. This is no time for arguing. You've all seen it. He's swept this place clean of elixirs. So, where will he go next? The central region. Their hearts sank. Having stripped the outer ring bare, Kael would inevitably head for the largest palace and that colossal tower. In fact, that had been their intention as well. They simply hadn't gotten around to it before he beat them to it. Moreover, Choo Kwahng said, his gaze turning distant, he broke the restrictions at a speed far beyond ours. That alone proves he possesses some extraordinary means of breaking seals. If we delay any longer, never mind this place. Even the elixirs over there will be stripped clean by him. And when that happens, a cold glint flashed in his eyes. Our trip to the Mystic Elixir Pavilion will have been for nothing.
Heh, Daihan let out a cold laugh, a fine analysis. Then why don't you go after him yourself? Haven't the three of you had enough of being taught a lesson?
I understand the logic well enough myself, Choo Kwahng said, his gaze turning icy. One-on-one, none of us is a match for him. Even the three of us combined came off worse, but...
What if the five of us join forces?
The five of us? Zhao Menju's heart stirred, you mean?
Exactly. Choo Kwahng drew a deep breath, suppressing the hatred he felt toward her. Cooperation, 5 factions working together to pressure him.
No matter how strong he is, he can't withstand the combined strength of all 5 factions.
You saw it yourself. Daihan was beginning to waver, his tone no longer as hard as before. That figure behind him, it's very strange.
Rest assured, Choo Kwahng had already anticipated this. That figure doesn't seem to possess a will of its own. It merely follows him on instinct.
Once we subdue him, that figure is nothing to fear.
Think it through. He fixed his gaze on Daihan. The elixirs within this Mystic Elixir Pavilion have all been taken by him. Whether they ever appear again is beside the point. A pavilion hollowed down to its shell is completely useless to us.
Daihan fell silent. He understood all too well. Kael had done nothing less than dig out the pavilion's very roots. From this point on, the fortune of this place was, to all intents and purposes, gone for good.
Let me make one thing clear. In that instant, Daihan steeled his resolve. If he absolutely refuses to give in, and it truly comes down to a desperate fight, I won't be the first to charge.
But I won't take advantage of anyone either. If you put in more, you take out more. I've no objection to that.
The elixirs he'd found earlier were cultivation, boosting pills as well.
He knew all too well how precious such things were, and unless there was truly no other choice, he naturally wouldn't let them go without a fight.
Me too, Zhao Menju said coolly. I'll go along with you, but I won't completely break with him. How to exploit that advantage, that's up to your strategy.
The others might not know, but she knew all too well what stood behind Kael. It wasn't merely the Great Flame Emperor dynasty.
There was also the Holy Land behind Zuoyang, a power whose foundations ran unfathomably deep. Dream on, Wuhan sneered. So you two are just going along to put on a show and scare him, and when it actually comes to throwing down, we're the ones who do it. Nothing in this world is free.
Forget it. Choo Kwahng raised a hand, cutting him off. I agree.
This absolutely does not.
What? Choo Kwahng shot him a sidelong glance. As things stand, do you have a better plan?
Wuhan's words died in his throat.
Of course, he had no plan. If he refused, all he could do was watch Kael feast to his heart's content, while the rest of them drooled from the sidelines, and still worry about whether Kael would hurl the left
their bones at their heads?
The sooner, the better. Having reached an agreement, Choo Kwahng no longer hesitated. Let's head over now. The later we arrive, the more he'll have taken.
Hold on. Daihan pointed at the palace. What about the stuff in here?
Split evenly.
Suppressing the rage churning in his chest, Choo Kwahng forced out those 2 words. In his repeated confrontations with Kael, he had failed time and again.
By now, the bearing he'd once possessed as a Saint Realm powerhouse had nearly been ground to dust.
Inside the elixir chamber.
97. Nero Shanks's brow furrowed deeply. What does that mean?
Take a look around. Kael pondered for a moment. See whether the other elixir chambers have similar numbers.
On it.
With their combined strength, it took only moments to inspect every elixir chamber.
There's one here.
Here, too. This one's a bit blurred. Hard to make out, but there's one. When they reconvened, the meaning of the numbers had become clear. 97 was very likely the serial number of the elixir chamber. Every room bore one.
The smallest was 46, the largest 157, corresponding exactly to the 112 elixir chambers in this main hall.
46. Kael was thoughtful. It seems the numbering here starts at 46. Then, what about the chambers before that?
As he spoke, he instinctively looked at the silhouette behind him. Do you know where they are?
The figure did not respond, though Kael hadn't expected an answer in the first place.
After spending so long in the thing's company, talking to it from time to time had become a habit. Well, since there's a room 46, there must be a room 45. So where is this room 45?
Unexpectedly.
As if the number 45 held some special significance to the figure, it shuddered slightly, then moved again. It moved again. The group's eyes went wide.
The figure paid them no heed. Its form drifted slowly, and for the first time, it left Kael's back, passing straight through the walls of chamber after chamber, vanishing from their sight.
Its direction was unmistakable, the colossal tower.
Yana Murong stared dumbfounded. What is it doing?
I don't know. Nero's Shanks looked utterly lost.
Did something provoke it again?
Let's go. Kael made the call without hesitation. Follow it.
A suspicion took shape in his mind. The figure's strange transformation might well be connected to the chamber he had inadvertently mentioned. No.
45.
And its destination was the rear of the Great Hall, the most secret place within the Mystic Elixir Pavilion, that towering pagoda that pierced the clouds. At that thought, he stopped hesitating and shot out of the hall.
Perhaps the figure's unfinished wish, his own doubts, and the hidden truths of the Mystic Elixir Pavilion could all find their answers there.
Seeing him move, Yana Murong, Nero's Shanks, and even fell in behind him.
In the space of a few breaths, the giant tower came into full view.
It soared hundreds of zhang into the sky, 9 tiers in all, lofty and imposing, its crown lost in the clouds.
What material it had been forged from, no one could tell.
The entire structure was pitch black, its luster turned inward. Endless years had left it worn and aged, yet not a single trace of damage marred its surface. It made the palaces they'd searched look flimsy by comparison. At its base, a massive black gate faced them in silence.
Above the gate were carved 2 characters, Elixir Tower. The strokes were forceful and vigorous, carrying immense gravitas.
As they arrived, they caught sight of the figure drifting slowly through the gate, disappearing once more from their view. Elixir Tower, Nero's Shanks sounded puzzled. What place is this? Could it be that all the chambers before No, 46, are inside? That should be it. Ivan nodded. The sequence of the chambers must be more than a string of numbers. It may carry another meaning, perhaps strength, perhaps status. In any case, it can't be simple, and those chambers before No, 46, the significance they hold must be completely different from the ones we saw earlier.
Let's go in and see. Kael stepped forward first. Maybe what we're looking for is in there.
As he passed through the gate, a flicker of blankness crossed his face. A strange sensation stirred at the edge of his spiritual perception, hard to define, harder still to explain.
It felt as if by stepping through this door, he was walking towards something he could never have anticipated.
Brother Gu.
Nero's Shanks's call jolted him out of that peculiar state.
Are you all right?
I'm fine. Kael shook off the strange feeling and let his gaze wander across the tower's first floor. The layout mirrored the Great Hall, but here there were far fewer chambers, only 9, each much larger.
A figure stood motionless before one of them, as if lost in thought. He started toward it, but stopped when he saw Yana Murong and the others. Their expressions were strained, as though they were carrying an enormous weight.
What's wrong?
You're not affected. Ivan frowned, then his eyes cleared, of course. Your strength is far above ours. A little pressure like that wouldn't even register.
Pressure? Kael blinked. What pressure?
You didn't feel it. Nero's Shanks was astonished. Once Ivan explained, Kael understood. The instant they stepped through the door, an inexplicable suppression had crashed down on them, so heavy they could barely breathe.
I really didn't. Kael tried again, reaching out with his senses. I can't sense anything at all. That can't be. Yana Murong tusked. Has your cultivation already reached such a level?
No, Ivan shook his head. Even if he's far stronger than us, even if the pressure's effect on him is negligible, he still shouldn't be completely unaware of it, unless...
The pressure simply isn't aimed at him?
Very likely. Nero's Shanks thought for a moment. The Mystic Elixir Pavilion itself is mysterious enough, and this pressure appeared out of nowhere. I can't think of any other explanation.
Could it be? Yana Murong's eyes lit up with a sudden thought. Brother Gu has some connection to the Mystic Elixir Pavilion. Impossible. Kael shook his head outright. This is my first time here, and the name Mystic Elixir Pavilion, I wouldn't even know it if I hadn't heard it from those people. Inwardly, he pondered, the greatest secrets he carried were the Shade and the Prime Arrival Sword Cannon. Yet earlier, when the Shade had heard about the Mystic Elixir Pavilion, it had shown no particular reaction at all clearly. It had little to do with this place.
As for the Prime Arrival Sword Cannon,
the way of the sword and the way of alchemy belonged to 2 entirely different realms. They had nothing whatsoever in common.
Actually, Ivan seemed struck by a thought. Earlier, that figure followed you, ignored us completely, and even reached out to lift the seal for you. That already says a great deal.
The figure.
Right, a thought struck Kael. Perhaps he could glean some useful information from it.
I'll go take a look.
With that, he blurred and appeared beside the figure in an instant. He was about to speak when he caught sight of a number carved into the pitch-black wall.
45.
Perhaps due to the material, this number was far clearer than those outside. Even with the passage of time and the shift of ages, it had barely been affected.
This place, Kael sighed softly and glanced at the figure. This is Elixir Chamber No, 45, isn't it?
Hearing that number once more, the figure's form trembled slightly, as if the number held a special meaning for it. Kael shook his head and swept his gaze around the chamber.
Compared with those outside, it held a few extra rows of jade shelves and a jade meditation cushion worn more than halfway through. Apart from that, there was no difference. But perhaps because the elixir tower was so tightly sealed, the dust here was considerably less than in the outer chambers, which was also why the number on the wall had caught his eye at first glance.